I've always had a deep passion and love for the elderly. I actually used to run bingo nights and magic shows at my local nursing home in my hometown. And when I went to college and then started my full-time career in finance in New York, I kind of lost touch with that. And I really missed that aspect of working closely with the elderly and helping them in some capacity. And simultaneously was just thinking about what I want in my career more long term and what would be more fulfilling and meaningful for me. And finance in particular, I don't know if that will serve the meaningful side of things for me and kind of fill that bucket. So that's how I found REL and I found the podcast. And as soon as I started listening to it, I immediately was like, this is what I want to do.
Welcome to the Ral Room Assisted Living Podcast with your hosts, Charlie Cameron and Alex Schloe. This is your go-to show for cutting-edge insights from industry leaders in residential assisted living.
Whether you're ready to launch your own assisted living business or looking to invest in this fast-growing, high-impact sector, we are here to equip you with the tools, strategies, and confidence you need to succeed. Get ready to ride the silver tsunami and change the future of senior care. Now on to today's show. To the Ral Room Assisted Living Podcast. I am so excited for today's guest. It's someone who represents exactly why we started the Ral Room Assisted Living Mastermind. Less than a year ago, she was listening to this very podcast on morning walks before work, wondering if owning an assisted living home was even possible. And today, Nicole DeSantis owns her first lease-to-operator assisted living property. Nicole DeSantis, welcome to the Ral Room Assisted Living Podcast. We're so glad that you're here.
Hey, Alex, thank you so much for having me on. Honestly, feels surreal to be on this podcast. Like you said a year ago, I was just starting to listen to it, and it's my dream to have one of these homes now. So super excited to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. We are so excited. It has been such a cool journey walking through your journey and your story over the last year. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about where you're at today. Sorry, let's start today in your assisted living journey, and then we'll rewind back and talk more about the journey. So what's the big news? What just happened recently in your
Yeah,
assisted living journey?
sure. So a few weeks ago, I closed on my first lease to operator home. It is in the state of Oregon, and we'll get into this. Ironically, I live in New York City, so quite the trip away, but I closed on my first property in Oregon. I'm following the lease to operator model, so I don't need to physically be there for it, but I have a great operator with boots on the ground there and a great network in Salem, but have just been working over the past few weeks to get the house up and running, doing some repairs and all of that to be ready for licensing to come in. And then once we have it licensed, the residents can start moving in.
That's so awesome. And for folks who are listening to this and you don't know what lease to operator means, Nicole explained it beautifully. Essentially, you purchase the real estate, you lease that out to an operator, typically on a commercial lease. That operator is the one who's responsible for the day-to-day care, the licensing, et cetera. And we'll talk a lot more about that. But just so you know from the beginning, one key thing that you almost glossed over was you're in New York, this home's in Oregon. How awesome is that you're able to do that? And that is something that's available through the lease to operator model. Let's rewind back almost a year. You're living in New York City, working full-time in finance. What even got you started in assisted living or gave you some interest in it?
Yeah. So honestly, this stems back from when I was a very little girl. I've always had a deep passion and love for the elderly. I actually used to run bingo nights and magic shows at my local nursing home in my hometown. And when I went to college and then started my full-time career in finance in New York, I kind of lost touch with that. And I really missed that aspect of working closely with the elderly and helping them in some capacity. And simultaneously was just thinking about what I want in my career more long term and what would be more fulfilling and meaningful for me. And finance in particular, I don't know if that will serve the meaningful side of things for me and kind of fill that bucket. So that's how I found REL and I found the podcast. And as soon as I started listening to it, I immediately was like, this is what I want to do. I think that my business skills that I've learned over the past few years of being in corporate America, combined with my genuine passion and love for the elderly, made this a really strong opportunity for me to pursue.
That is awesome. Yeah, I think so many folks have some touch point to serving seniors, or they had a family member who unfortunately had a really poor experience in an assisted living home, and they really have that drive and that desire. And I think your heart is like that. That is what's so important in this space. Your heart for caring for seniors and caring for them well is so important. And I think so often folks listen to the podcast and they get excited and they never actually do anything. So, what made you decide to take action instead of just kind of staying in learning mode or getting stuck in learning mode for years and years to maybe eventually do this?
Yeah, I would say it really stems from my motivation just to land on a career, like I was mentioning earlier, a career that makes me happier and more fulfilled in the long term. Obviously, super grateful for everything that my current career in finance has provided me. I'm in a good place now in my life, but I'm looking and thinking ahead, and I can see myself being very happy and very fulfilled doing this in the long term. And that was the push for me is what steps can I take now to ensure a happier, more fulfilled future for myself?
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think a lot of times folks feel stuck in their W 2 and feel like, oh, there's no way I can really get that true fulfillment like you can get in assisted living, which I'm sure you're fulfilled in your job and it's great for you. But you're a perfect example of you don't have to just cut ties with your W 2 quick, go
Exactly.
full bore into this. You can make those stair steps over time and kind of snowball invest into this. And maybe at some point, it's a great time for you to exit your W-2, or maybe it's not because it's providing the financial resources to grow and scale or whatever that may be. And you're a great example of, hey, you can still work your W-2. You don't have to be in healthcare and you can still do this and do it well. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Exactly. No, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great. So let's talk about Oregon, right?
Yeah.
You live in New York. What did that journey look like? I guess even taking a step back from that, what made you feel like the lease to operate model was the right model for you? And then we'll dive into what that process looked like as you were looking for potential opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, being in my career in finance today in New York, I don't necessarily have the flexibility to just pick up and move to another state to operate the facility. And that is a big piece of if you own and operate the facility, you need to physically be there to do so. Or it would at least be recommended in order to have operations run up to par and everything like that. Being confined, if you will, maybe lack of a better term, confined to New York area, I was like, okay, what model can I follow that will still allow me to be in finance in New York, have that W-2 income while starting to explore this area, right? Instead of diving into the deep end and owning and operating and quitting my W-2 and moving across the country, I'm quote unquote dipping my toe in the deep end and learning from the operator through this experience while still maintaining my W-2 job in finance. So it kind of just worked for me given my current career situation paired with my long-term goals.
Yeah, and that makes a whole lot of sense. And folks who are interested in the leased operator space, you really can learn a ton about operations through doing that, right? Your operator that you pick to run your home is essentially your partner, and they are more than willing to share a lot of what the operations entails. And you can learn a lot through doing that. And maybe at some point it makes sense for you to own and operate a home and or partner with an operator and grow and scale and go that way as well. So it's a really great opportunity to get started, to get involved, to invest out of state. The cash flow is great still with lease to operator. It's more passive. We'll talk about some more of the benefits, but it sounds like it just really fit your life and where you were at from an investment perspective and provided you some balance, if I'm hearing you correctly, from a lease to operator perspective that you wouldn't get if you were owning and operating.
100%. Yep, that's exactly it.
Great. What did it look like as you started to evaluate deals? Did you initially start looking in New York and then figure out like, hey, maybe the Northeast doesn't make the most sense? Or what did that look like for you as you were getting started?
Exactly. Yeah. So I started in the Northeast, particularly with New York and New Jersey. And funny enough, it appears that those two states may be the hardest to get licensed in the whole country. And what that means for some of the newer folks listening, licensing is a really large part of this process. And you need to be licensed for the specific use of a residential assisted living facility. And I was just reading all these articles online that it can take up to 3 years in New York and New Jersey. And that wasn't going to work for me because part of my goal was to open up my first home before I turned 30. So I had less than a year to do that. So I was like, okay, I cannot pursue this here. Maybe in the long term, I can consider the Northeast if we stay here long term. But for my first home, it's not going to work, right? Also, purchase price too. That was part of my buy box. Houses in New York and New Jersey are considerably more expensive than where I ended up in Oregon. So that was part of it. I also did have a stint where I was strongly considering South Carolina as well. Why there? I have family down there. So my sister is in the Fort Mill area and my parents are in Hilton Head. So they're both in South Carolina, but on opposite ends of the state. But it was great because I looked in both of those areas, gave me some flexibility within the state. And the main problem I ran into there was I couldn't find operator interest in that area. And I don't know if it was due to maybe undersaturation and just not many of these types of homes being in those areas. But that was a non-starter for me. And we'll get more into this, but your operator really is the key piece of the puzzle for your lease to operator model and your success as the landlord on your lease to operator journey. So because of that, and because of the time it was taking to find an operator in South Carolina, I started to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do now to find a market that checks all my boxes below a certain purchase price? I wanted to stay ideally below 700K. It has heavy operator interest in the area, or at least more than what I saw in South Carolina. And am I cash flowing at least above $1,000, $1,500 per month? Those were my main criteria. So when I zoomed out and took a step back, I was able to see that actually Oregon fit those criteria. So that to say, it is really important to define your buy box as well, because I think it will help to narrow down your decision and steer you in the right direction of where to get started.
Yeah, I think that is huge. And yeah, everything you said is absolutely correct. The operator's the linchpin. Investing in the right place makes a lot of sense. Nicole, was there anything that came up in terms of physical structure of the home that you were looking for? Were you looking for a specific floor plan or
Mm.
bedroom count, or what did the structure of the home look like? And then we'll dive a little bit more into why Oregon.
Absolutely. So the main thing is that I was looking for one-story homes. And if it didn't have at least 5 bedrooms, and the reason I'm saying 5 bedrooms is because that's the maximum number of bedrooms that you can license in the state of Oregon. In order to be the most lucrative as you can be and most profitable as you can be, it's suggested to maximize that bed count, right? So I was looking for single-story 5-bedroom homes. If it didn't have the 5 beds, I was looking for potentially a large garage that could be converted into a bedroom as well. Generally speaking, you try to steer clear of 2-story homes and all of that. But I would say that was the main factor for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, large single story homes, as many bedrooms and bathrooms as possible, and always trying to maximize the number of residents that you can have. Ideally, in private bedrooms is going to optimize your chance for increasing the market rate that you can charge, and then therefore your cash flow. So yeah, absolutely, you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head there.
And I will say too, just to add, a key selling point for me on this current home too is that it was previously run as an adult foster home. That's what they call an RAL in the state of Oregon. So every state typically has their own nomenclature for these types of homes. Oregon is adult foster home. So it was run as an adult foster home a few months before I purchased it. That said, it was already retrofit for this purpose, which is amazing. So it has a ramp in the front to enter the house. It has a ramp in the back if they want to go outside and hang out in the patio area. It has the wider hallways that fit the licensing requirements. It has a roll-in shower. So it, to my point again, was retrofit for this purpose, which just made it a lot more appealing to me at the get-go as well, because not that it's harder to find them, but they definitely are few and far further between, the retrofit homes, and going through the renovation process to add in the roll-in showers, to add the ramps, all of that would just add more onto the timeline and everything and the budget. So I was really pleased to find a home that was retrofit already.
Yeah, it is huge. And then your time to licensing and getting open and operating and cash flow is going to be a lot faster too. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's awesome. And as we see more and more baby boomers aging, that opens up the opportunity to come into some of these similar deals where it's mom and pop operation. They're a baby boomer, they want to retire, and you can come in and purchase one of these homes that have been already renovated or retrofitted. If you're not, though, it's important to make sure you understand those life safety requirements that are required and what are the requirements in your specific area, because they can vary. And as you mentioned, like that can be quite costly to do some of those renovations in fire suppression systems, sprinklers, et cetera. Like the cost can really add up. So you want to make sure you're not surprised by the renovation costs as you're getting started on your journey. So let's talk about Oregon. So how did you end up landing on Oregon? You mentioned that a little bit, but was there anything in particular that led you to the state of Oregon?
Yeah, so the main entryway for me into Oregon was actually through the RAL Room mastermind program. And it was through one of the presentations and office hours that the community had with real estate agent Nicole Richards. And she is an amazing, I can't speak more highly of her, real estate agent based out of Oregon. And she specializes and at least is very familiar with adult foster homes. So she presented on creative financing in one of the office hours. And after that, when she was saying that the max number of beds you could license is 5, I took a step back and I said, that sounds like it's a lot more affordable for me. And there might be homes there that are under that 700, 750K dollar mark that I was mentioning to you earlier. So I was like, well, it's across the country, but why not? Let me reach out to her. So we scheduled a call and it really just took off from there. She was like, I'm so glad you reached out. I actually have a whole portfolio of homes that you can look at. So there were quite a few that we looked at initially. Some of these were not retrofit. Actually, most of them were not retrofit for adult foster homes yet. So they required some of those renovations that we were talking about. But however, off market and through a listing with the operator, we found together another home that we brought to Nicole. And then Nicole was able to connect with the listing agent and get us to see the house and everything. So it was a joint partnership, I would say, across Nicole, the operator, and myself finding the ideal home, if you will, because the county had played a big part in that as well. Greg, my operator, had mentioned that the counties we were looking at for some of the other homes, that county was pretty difficult to get licensed with, just comparatively speaking. And the home we have now is in Marion County, which is a little bit not more flexible, but easier in the whole licensing process, which is a big part of the puzzle as well. So that was a big piece, the bedroom count. Also, the purchase price, like I mentioned, related to the bedroom count. The operator interest was a huge piece for me as well. And I'm sure we'll get more into this, but I was able to see that there were multiple people who had responded to my Facebook post. This is how I found my operator, on being interested in running facilities for me. And I didn't have that interest in other states that I was looking at, such as South Carolina. So that was also a big piece of the Oregon puzzle for me. And then again, just modeling out the numbers as well to make sure that it checks the boxes that you're looking for from a cash flow perspective. So just running initial numbers when I saw the house too, based on purchase price, like estimated mortgage, and then based on the rent payment that I was going to get from Greg, it all worked out and it fit my criteria of about that 1.5K at least in cash flow per month. So it worked out.
That is awesome. Yeah, Nicole squared, crushing it. And so glad to hear that worked out with Nicole Richards and you as well. That is awesome. Let's break down the numbers, if you don't mind, if you're comfortable doing a little bit of a deal deep dive. So,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt this episode, but let's be honest. Most real estate investing right now, it's either buy a fourplex or try Airbnb and hope for the best.
yeah, we're not here for that.
We're here to show you what we believe is the most overlooked high cash flow real estate strategy in the game right now. You guessed it, residential assisted living. It's literally the one place in real estate where you can net 6 figures on a single home and feel like a decent human being at the same time. You're helping sweet old ladies eat pancakes and play bingo and live longer through better care. You tell me what's better than that.
So we're hosting a free live webinar called How You Can Create Financial Freedom with Residential Assisted Living. No fluff, just value. And it's happening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 Mountain Time. No excuses. It's online. Put on sweatpants. We won't judge.
We'll break down why residential assisted living is the best opportunity right now, the 5 steps to take down your first home, and how to set up a business that makes a real impact and real money.
Spots are limited, so don't be that person who DMs us in 3 months saying, wait, is it too late to start?
So hit up therowroom.com/webinar and register now.
Be the hero your grandma already thinks that you are.
We'll see you there. Pancakes not included.
What was the purchase price on the home? And then what was the down payment and financing structure? What did that look like?
Yeah, sure. So purchase price was $590. So below my preferred cap, which is great. I have 25% down on the home and I locked in at 6.75% rate. They're called Federal Savings Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another foot stomp on just the importance of relationships, right? Like
Yeah.
with Nicole Richards, with these financiers that she had, like that is huge to get you into this with minimal headache from a financing perspective. Let's talk more about lease payment, lease structure, and the timeline. So what's Greg paying you from a lease payment? What's the structure of the lease look like, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah.
And then cash flow numbers, if you don't mind as well.
Yeah, sure. So it's a 5-year commercial lease agreement. It actually started July 1st, but I'm giving him a ramp up period. So the first month is free. And then we have discounts on the rent up until month 5, which is when it will be considered quote unquote fully ramped. At that point, month 5, he will be paying me the full rent amount, which is agreed upon $7,000. And then year over year, we have a 3% increase on that. So all of that being said, the cash flow is strong. In the first few years, I'm trying to make up for some of the repairs I had to do. For instance, I had some roof repairs that I needed to do, windows, painting, landscaping. So the first year, I'm still above that $1,000 mark, which is great. But once you look at outer years, I'm even above $2,000 per month, which is wonderful. And I think it just goes back to being able to lock in that residential mortgage at a favorable rate and having that strong lease payment from Greg as well.
Absolutely. That is awesome. Just a foot stomp for folks who might have missed it. Nicole's going to be cash flowing anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 plus per month on just one home. And we'll talk more about operator and Greg's involvement. But overall, this is going to be a relatively passive investment for you over time. Pretty cool to be able to cash flow $2,000 per month plus all the real estate benefits and still be in the residential assisted living space. This is why we love Lease-to-Operator, and it's such a great opportunity for folks.
Absolutely.
Let's pivot and talk about Greg. So you had mentioned multiple times operator interest, and I would say we have also pivoted towards, we used to just purchase a home, then find the operator. We've pivoted more towards understanding the operator is the linchpin. It's so important in the lease-to-operator model where we're like, hey, we'll go anywhere for the right operator. And how did that search go for you? And then how did you ultimately find Greg, who's your operator?
Yeah, I would say I ran into the same issue that you just mentioned, where I was looking at homes first and then trying to find operators to fill those homes for me. And I had to rethink that process because I learned very quickly, and this is all in the span between January of 2026 to April 2026, that I had to take a step back and now look at where's the operator interest and then find a home for that operator. So I found him on Facebook. So there's a lot of different local communities within Facebook on residential assisted living. So the one that I posted in specifically was the Salem greater area of Oregon for adult foster homes. And they had a few. I believe I posted in about 2 or 3, just very generic, introducing myself. Hey, I'm Nicole. I'm looking to get into residential assisted living. And I'm really interested in finding an operator partnership and someone who would be willing to run the operations of a future home I'm looking to purchase in Marion County. And I received a few DMs within 24 hours from various people. And I would say that was the main indicator for me right there that this is a strong market to do it. Because speaking from experience, I wasn't getting that in South Carolina, for example, right? So it just goes to show that not only is there opportunity to do it, but it seems like a great opportunity if the operators are very interested in expanding. So that said, I spoke to a few different operators and I ultimately clicked the most and connected the most with Greg. So we initially were messaging on Facebook, then he gave me his phone number. I gave him a phone call. I just gave him background on how I'm getting into this space and wanted to hear about his two existing AFHs that he has. He walked me through that. And then it just ended up being the perfect match because he was looking for a home where he could lease it out, or sorry, not lease it out, but rent it as opposed to purchase, because him and his wife just opened up another AFH in September. So he was like, if I don't have to have another mortgage a few months later, that's great for me. This sounds like a great partnership and we're checking each other's boxes here. So we ended up partnering, and then we had a few Zoom meetings as well where we walked through what ideal rent payment would look like, what are some of the non-negotiables for him, what are some of the non-negotiables for me, and really just what worked for both of us to see if it would be feasible moving forward in the deal. And we were able to come to an agreement on the rent, as I mentioned. And then, yeah, we took it from there. But I will say an important piece to all of this too is don't stop when you just find one operator too. I still continued a few conversations with others because it is important to continue building out your network and to build out that Rolodex, and to, God forbid, something happens and the operator falls through, you have a potential backup that you can fall upon. So don't have any plans of Greg and I's plan falling through. I sure hope that doesn't happen, but I at least know a few names that I can reach out to if anything does happen.
Yeah, that is great. And if you decide you want to scale and maybe Greg's not available to scale, you have other opportunities. And yeah, that is awesome. Really helpful because the operator is such a key part to this puzzle to really make things work and make things work well. So great to hear that you did that. And it's beautiful through Lease-to-Operator that you have that ability to invest out of state. And so you're not really limited. If you're sitting here listening from New York City right now as well, you can do the same thing that Nicole did and potentially invest in another state. And the other thing I wanted to hit on, for there's probably some folks who are listening to this who are in the situation as Greg, where they want to operate, they're systems oriented, they maybe have that experience, maybe they already have some assisted living homes. This is a great opportunity where you can come in as the operator and network with real estate investors like Nicole and get into a home for, I'm sure, some sort of security deposit and then the lease fee. So instead of needing that 25% down payment, which I was doing, the math is about $150,000, you can come in for a lot cheaper and grow your business that way. That's just the reverse of the lease operator. You're the operator who's doing the lease from someone like Nicole who owns the real estate. So that can be a really great way to get started in assisted living without having to save up such a large down payment or have a large cash position. So I want to make sure we hit on that as well.
100%.
What were some things, Nicole, that were surprising for you during the due diligence process, the inspection, those sorts of things? Anything that you would do differently looking back?
Yeah, so I would say I had the most shockers during the inspection process. This is actually my first real estate investment at all. So I'm a first-time real estate investor, and I'm also a first-time RAL owner. So I'm entering both of these industries at once. And I've never been through a home inspection process before because I have just leased in New York City, and albeit it's very expensive and there are pain points, I don't really have to worry about inspections or anything like that. So let's just say I learned quite a lot. If you can afford it, I would say one recommendation, consider getting a second opinion on your overall inspection of the home. And I'm sure this won't be the case for everyone, but unfortunately for me, there were some big ticket items that were overlooked and missed. And the fact that I'm remote and I'm across the country, I didn't have the ability to catch those items myself in person being there. And unfortunately, the real estate agent and others, they didn't catch them either. And it's no one's fault, but it's more so just things that were easily overlooked, especially if we're not professionals, right? We don't know that the roof has XYZ issue. A roofer would know that, or an inspector would know that. So try to get at least two opinions, I would say, on that front. That was the biggest surprise for me, is I just learned pretty quickly how the costs add up and how it's obviously extremely important to ensure that the home is in safe and sound condition before handing it over to the operator as well.
Absolutely. That's a key point, and I'm glad you brought that up. We've gotten burned by multiple property inspections. Our first deal Charlie and I ever invested in was in LJ, Georgia, the short-term rental, and the inspection overall looked really good. We got there, we closed, we got there that weekend, and we walked in, and there was like clearly standing water in the finished basement for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
And on the inspection report, it's like, no evidence of water extrusion. I was like, what the heck? So you are limited when you're out of state. You're not able to personally be there for that inspection. And so you
Mhm.
hit the nail on the head. Getting another inspector, maybe having a general contractor that you know and trust also go walk the property. Just having some more eyes on the property can be really helpful. It's worth $400 or $500 that it may cost you to do that, especially if it turns out, yeah, there's something that's really substantial that may dramatically impact the deal. And so that is a really great tip, a good lesson learned for folks. And thank you for sharing that.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. You've hit a lot of lessons learned. Are there any that you feel would be beneficial for someone, especially someone who's kind of just getting started in this space?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing for me, and I've touched upon it a bit earlier, but really define your buy box, right? And what I mean by that is what is important for you to achieve in your first deal? Do you want to get started within a certain amount of time? Do you want to stay below a certain purchase price on the home? What do you want to cash flow per month? What are your priorities, right? And based off of that, it will make it a lot easier for you to figure out and narrow down which market would potentially be the best option for you. Because I learned through experience that first looking in the Northeast and then looking at South Carolina, that I had to take a step back and redefine that. And that's what led me to Oregon. And that's what led me to success so far, knock on wood. But I think that it's always important to consider taking a step back. It's not necessarily a slow on your progress, or it's not a bad thing. A lot of times, taking that pause and taking the step back to rethink your strategy, and if you're doing it right, will allow you to move quicker in the long term.
Yeah, and that is great. You're so right. Because otherwise, you're left spinning the wheels, looking at Redfin or Zillow and all these different areas. You never really make any progress. And so, having that buy box really able to narrow things down, and your realtor is going to love that you're coming to them and you're saying, like, I want to look at all, I want to know about only these homes. They're going to be very much more helpful and more excited to work with you when you have a designated buy box that they can work with too, and more likely going to get you a better deal and an opportunity.
100%. 100%. Nicole was very appreciative of that too. So it made things
Yeah.
a lot easier. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. Let's talk about looking ahead. The first home, first investment, you've done it. My understanding is your long-term goal is much bigger. So what does your vision look like going forward?
It is. And it's funny you asked too. I actually was just speaking with Erin from the RAL room on Friday about this, because I'm at a point in my life where I'm thinking long term now. Not to say that I wasn't before, but having such an exciting opportunity in front of me now, I'm really eager to action upon it and do so as quickly as I can. And in the past, at least what I thought my future always entailed was just working for the rest of my life at a big bank in New York City. And my boyfriend is also in banking. So when we get married one day, it makes sense for us to be here and buy a house in the suburbs and continue working in finance. However, things have changed. My dreams of my long-term future have changed, and that's not a bad thing. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting. And he's super supportive of it too. So we're really trying to figure out what works best for us as a couple too, in order to make both of our long-term careers and our dreams work together as one. As I mentioned, in an ideal world, I would love to be in South Carolina to not only own the property, but operate a few of these properties as well. Especially once I have children, I want to have more flexibility in my career as well, and not be tied to a cubicle and a 9 to 5 in an office. And that's something I've known for a while. So I'm trying to figure out what steps I can take now before we're married, before I have children, on how I can take steps towards that future to give me the flexibility and operate these homes before getting to that stage in my life.
That is amazing. Congratulations on everything to come. That's super exciting. And so many folks haven't even taken the time to think through, hey, what do I really want my future to look like? And so if you haven't done that, I would strongly consider you do that and then work backwards, and you can start to see, hey, this is entirely possible. My dream life really is possible if I just start eating the elephant one bite at a time, as they say, and you realize over time that's going to continue to stack. And then before you know it, you've achieved your dreams and you've achieved your vision, and you have that financial freedom and you have that time freedom, and you're able to live life how you want to, which is awesome. So I have no doubt once we have you back on the podcast 5 years from now, your portfolio is going to look different. You're going to be operating, you're going to be doing all the above, and it's going to be really exciting to hear that, to see that.
I sure hope so. Yeah, we're working through all the details now. And I think another helpful piece of advice too, and this is something that Aaron shared with me, is really sit down and write out what your constraints are currently. And as I mentioned, a big constraint right now is that we're both tied to New York just for the sake of our W-2s. For me, that's something I'm willing to move away from within the shorter term, but for him, in the sake of his trajectory, career trajectory, it's important for him to be in New York for his banking career for at least the next 5 years. So then I have that constraint of 5 years in New York. Okay, I can't completely, or I won't completely write off South Carolina just because of that. But potentially that means I need to look at more lease-to-operator models then, instead of moving to South Carolina and operating them. So it's about finding workarounds and compromise, and there is a solution to everything, because if I was able to open up my first home in Oregon, which is across the country, anyone can do this, I promise.
Have you ever been to Oregon before you flew out to look at these homes?
No, it was my first time, which is crazy. It was my first time, but yeah, we had a great experience. Portland's actually a big foodie city too, and we're big foodies. So not only did we enjoy the food, but we got to see the home in person, obviously. And then we met up with Greg, and Greg gave us a tour of his two existing homes as well, which was
Great.
amazing, and highly recommend to anyone pursuing this to meet the operator in person. And if they do have existing facilities, try to see those in person, because it will give you the best idea you will ever get of how they will run your business too.
That is a huge piece of advice. Yeah, what a great idea. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to do that. Haven't been to Portland yet, but it's on the list. Would love to get out
Yeah,
there, eat some good food, come to your home.
absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Let's pivot here as we're kind of getting closer to wrapping up. You weren't just a podcast listener, you joined the mastermind. And as I mentioned before, you're a perfect example of the folks that we're looking for in the Rower Assisted Living Mastermind. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what it looked like, what role the community actually played in helping you get this deal done?
100%. So I would say, and I will just preface this, genuinely, I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the RAL room. And it comes down to two main factors. One is knowledge, and two is the network. And it gave me the knowledge and the network that I needed to be able to take this step in my life. Before this, I had no idea what residential assisted living entailed. I did not know where to start. I really knew nothing. And what I did was I would wake up super early and carve out a few hours of every morning before going to my W-2 to dedicate time to watch the modules in the RAL room. And after going through all of them, it really helped me to land on Lease-to-Operator as being the best fit for me, and gave me all the tools and the best tips that I needed to pursue the Lease-to-Operator model. So that's on the knowledge side of things. All of the trainings, all of the modules are super resourceful and helpful. But the biggest piece, I would say, potentially even more important than the knowledge, is the network. And through the RAL room is how I met Nicole Richards, the real estate agent, as I mentioned. And she was really the key to success for me here, because she was able to work with me in getting this home and introducing me to Oregon and everything I needed to know about Oregon, So the network here has been absolutely incredible. If you have an insurance question, if you have a real estate question, if you have a licensing question, there will be at least one person in this community who can answer it for you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That really means a lot. And we were talking before the podcast about, gosh, just how cool it's been to see this win and all the wins that are happening in the RAL room. It has been just the opportunity of a lifetime, honestly, for us to just be a small part in these journeys that you guys are on, and just thinking through the seniors who are going to get such great care in all these homes. It just, gosh, makes me so happy. I could tear up just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It is awesome. So that's why we do what we do. Nicole, if folks want to reach out to you, they want to connect with you, they want to follow along on your journey, is there anywhere that is a good place for them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So my email is properties@gmail.com. And then my LinkedIn is Nicole DeSantis. Still working to get my LinkedIn more RAL leaning and not just corporate finance professional in New York City. We're getting there, but feel free to connect on LinkedIn or shoot me an email, and I'd be more than happy to speak to anyone with questions, because I was in your shoes less than a year ago, and it feels surreal to be here now.
That is awesome. I can't wait to see what happens over the next year or two for you. It's going to be very exciting. And Nicole, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story and breaking down the numbers and just really taking time to explain your journey to everyone. I know it was super inspiring to lots of folks listening. And it's not necessarily that you built a massive portfolio. You're on your way to doing that, but you proved that it's entirely possible when you commit to learning, when you commit to taking consistent action, when you're in the right community, anything is possible. And so I cannot wait to have you back on the podcast after you close home number 2 here soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. With that, it's been Alex and Nicole with the RAL Room Assisted Living Podcast, signing off. Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to the RAL Room Assisted Living Podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a raving 5-star review. And a quick review helps more listeners find the show and more seniors get the exceptional care they deserve.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And just so you know, we have prepared some free resources for you to help you succeed in residential assisted living in addition to this podcast. Head over to theralroom.com, that is theralroom.com, to download our free 10-step guide to launch your first or next residential assisted living home, or our 10 reasons to passively invest in residential assisted living ebooks.
And if you're ready to take the next step and make real moves in the RAL industry, join us in the RAL Room Mastermind. It is an exclusive community where we deep dive into everything you need to launch and grow your own residential assisted living business. You'll get access to recorded courses, live calls with industry experts, a RAL calculator, resources and tools, like-minded entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and an expert networking community to help you along your journey.
Be sure to join us next time on the RAL Room Podcast as we continue to explore the world of residential assisted living with more great guests. See you then.